Good morning again, friends. If you were paying attention to our earlier session, I'm still Joe from ACFO. If you haven't watched any previous sessions, hi, I'm Joe from ACFO. It's our pleasure to welcome some of our friends from multiple departments. I think we have 18 departments taking part over the next yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I'm telling you a little bit about what life is like to work at their departments. They're all looking for FI talent. They're hoping to recruit you. Just to remind you, we are going to be taking questions through Slido. So it's slido.com, SLIDO.com. And you put in the password ACFO-ACAF, and there you can submit questions. You can see other questions that have been submitted and vote those up. We'll turn to the questions in a few minutes, but first our friends from the RCMP are here and they've got a presentation for you to walk you through. So I'm going to get out of the way because you're not here to hear me, and I'm going to let my friend Julie take over. Julie, why don't you tell folks a little bit about life at RCMP?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julie Bowman. I am the Director, National Senior Finance Officer for Specialized Policing at the RCMP. I've also got my colleague with me, Mireille Morneau, who is the Director of Corporate Accounting for the RCMP. Joe, you can probably go to the first slide right away. Structure. So for anyone who doesn't know, the RCMP, along with CBSA, CSIS, Corrections, and the Parole Board, are all part of the public safety portfolio. So we all fall under Minister Bill Blair. But the RCMP does have a commissioner, and we are led by Commissioner Brenda Lucki. You might recognize the name. We're in the news a little bit lately. Commissioner Lucki is considered the accountable officer for the RCMP, and she has commanding officers and ADMs in the HQ area that all report directly into her. The RCMP has over 30,000 employees, and we have over 700 detachments across the country, as well as employees who perform national and international roles worldwide. We do have missions in other countries across the world. Of the 30,000 employees that we do have, over 20,000 of those are police officers, which we refer to as regular members, and we have close to 8,000 public service employees across Canada. We also have 3,000 civilian member employees, which is a classification that's specific to the RCMP. They currently are more in line with RCMP members, but they are being rolled into the public service category eventually. The pandemic has obviously slowed that down, and issues with Phoenix have also caused some issues there, but eventually those folks will become public service employees as well. So for anyone who's wondering, we do have public service employees, and therefore joining the RCMP doesn't mean that you're leaving the core public service. It is still core public service. You can go to the next slide, Joe. So finance at the RCMP is all led by our CFO, who's a pretty new CFO who started during the pandemic. She's been onboarded and started her transition period all virtually, which has been quite interesting. She's a major proponent of MS Teams, so we are slowly getting used to the idea of being on video pretty much all day long. So this is not a foreign concept for us. Under finance, or within corporate management of the RCMP, which is the group that our CFO leads, the finance teams are broken up into 3 separate groups. The first one is corporate management systems, and they manage the financial management system of the RCMP, which we call TEAM here. I know it has a bunch of different names in other departments. It is an SAP platform, and at the RCMP, that platform incorporates specialized portals for travel, extra duty pay, and shift scheduling for public servants and police officers who work shifts, as well as encompasses our delegation of financial authorities matrices. The second group, which represents our first DCFO position, because we do have 2 Deputy Chief Financial Officer positions at the RCMP. The second position is the Director General Corporate Accounting Policy and Control. So that Deputy Chief Financial Officer position is responsible for accounting policy, travel and hospitality policy, pension accounting policy, as well as departmental financial statements, public accounts, and developing and implementing an internal control framework that monitors and assesses financial performance and identifies best practices. Corporate accounting policy and control ensures accuracy, timeliness, and compliance with statutory and legislative frameworks, as well as central agency direction, and of course, professional accounting principles. So that group heavily relies on individuals who have CPA designations and are focused on the stream of accounting. The third group, which is our second Deputy Chief Financial Officer, is financial management, and it's organized by client. So there is a National Senior Finance Officer, which is what my role is. There's a National Senior Finance Officer that represents each of the various programs within the RCMP. So, for example, we have a contract policing group, a federal policing group, specialized policing, and then corporate management functions. So those national senior finance officers work directly with their clients to manage and interpret their financial needs through forecasting, costing, assisting in preparation of memorandums to cabinet, TB submissions, etc. Really the full financial management or financial manager advisory role. Their services include strategic financial planning, analysis of new program proposals, and monitoring of financial plans. And financial management is an active member of each program area's executive table and can provide advice and guidance from the inception of an idea through to its completion. The RCMP has a net appropriation of $3.5 billion. So it is a relatively large portfolio, obviously not as huge as some other beasts like D&D, but it is a pretty significant budget, and we have over 200 FI employees, which in my opinion is not enough. 200 employees across Canada, and $3.5 billion in appropriation is pretty significant. So it is a pretty busy group, and we are constantly looking for new qualified FI employees. You can go to the next slide, Joe. So you're probably asking yourself, why do I want to work for the RCMP? The RCMP can be found around the country. We are a national force and a national team. So you can see RCMP police officers around the country, but you can also see our finance professionals. In addition to the headquarters finance teams, we have finance offices that exist under regional senior financial officers, and they're located throughout 3 regions of the country. So our 3 major regions are the Pacific region, the Northwest region, and the Atlantic region. We are a complex medium to large size department, and part of that complexity revolves around the fact that we do have a policing services agreement with provincial partners across Canada, and that's unique to the RCMP, and it's really the lion's share of our vote net revenues. Dealing with that agreement and the invoicing and billing process associated with the partners is definitely something that's unique to the RCMP and incredibly interesting in developing relationships with our provincial partners. Our business lines are pretty unique, and they represent some exciting opportunities that are not necessarily available in other departments. We are dealing with sensitive expenditures, covert operations, as well as international operations at missions and liaison offices. And we also deal with unique forensic science clients that offer an opportunity to gain insight into the nature and complexity of police work. It definitely is a dynamic environment. As you see, the government as a whole is a pretty dynamic environment right now, as we're dealing with some pretty significant changes with respect to this pandemic and moving ourselves to a virtual environment. Well, the policing environment is very similar in that it's ever changing, and one significant change that's been facing the RCMP and our police officers is the increase in cybercrime. And that environment, as well as the communities that we serve, continue to grow and face new challenges and present new challenges to us as finance professionals who need to make sure that we're providing the base and really the foundation for those police operations to take place. I say that the RCMP is a Canadian institution. The RCMP truly is an iconic Canadian symbol, and when our American friends think of Canadians, they typically envision the Mountie on his horse. So it is kind of cool to be a part of something that is so iconic to Canadiana. And as we approach our 150th year, the RCMP is continuing to grow, adapt, and modernize as evidenced through our Vision 150. If you check out our virtual booth that's been set up, you'll see some of the pillars that have been included as part of our Vision 150, and that is Commissioner Brenda Lucky's, that's her mission, that's her vision, that's how we want to develop as an RCMP, and those are the pillars that we are focusing on. As finance professionals, we're here to support the efforts of Vision 150 and to ensure that our department has been adequately resourced to address the growing demand for automation and a digitally equipped police force. Our role is to act also as resource stewards and to ensure that our core mandate is being served and that we are protecting all Canadians across the country. The positions for finance professionals are primarily located in Barrhaven at 73 Leakin Drive, which is where I am located right now as well. So it is a pretty nice short commute. We do have a beautiful building here in Barrhaven, and we are looking for both bilingual and English essential positions. There are positions across the country as well. If we do have people who are listening in right now that are outside of the NCR, we do have quite a few positions that are outside of the NCR and always looking to grow and develop. If you are interested, the email address to send your resume is included in the virtual booth. Or at least I think, Joe, that's up and running. You can correct me if it's not. And if anyone has any questions, both myself and Mireille are here right now to take your questions. So over to you guys.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. So yeah, and thank you, Julie, for plugging the virtual booth. I hadn't had a chance to mention that in these sessions yet. For those of you who are registered for the spring tune-up, you will see when you log into the platform, which you can do now. You should have the email as of Friday. Several of the departments that are participating in these sessions have also set up virtual booths where you can go and see additional information and find a little bit more about what they're offering. So, Julie, I couldn't have paid for that plug any better. We are going to flip over to Slido and take some questions. So again, that's slido.com and the code is ACFO-ACAF. And while I get that called up, Julie, one question that's been asked of every department, or Mireille as well, whoever wants to take this, talk a little bit about the RCMP's investment in training for FIs. So some departments will have a per member or per employee training budget, or just generally kind of the appetite for training and how hard it is to get training approved.
So I'll speak to it a little bit and then Mireille can pipe in because we are in two separate groups. I used to be in the group that Mireille was in, and so pretty much at the RCMP, we typically do use, just as a minimum threshold, $1,500, just as a starting point for people to create their learning plans. The learning plans are created basically in consultation with your manager at the time that you are doing your performance evaluation for the prior year. And our plan is that they are focused on any specific key areas that your manager has identified as either an area for development or a specific area of interest for the employees. So we start with $1,500. We typically like to make as a priority the mandatory FI courses so that we make sure as people are coming in, those are being done. Of course, anybody who's doing CPA courses, like in the middle of actually getting their certification as a CPA, those courses take priority as well. And then we move on to more developmental, personal interest type courses as the third category of priority. I've yet to see anybody limited to the $1,500. Unfortunately, we have quite a few employees that don't really create a learning plan or don't have an interest in doing any training. So typically there is a bit of flexibility in terms of budget and being able to make courses available. We also take advantage of trying to book group training pretty significantly. We like to try and get people to come into the RCMP all the way out in Barrhaven and deliver group training so that we can kind of experience a bit of an economy of scale instead of sending people out to individual courses. Mireille, I don't know if you have anything to add?
Just quickly, we do offer a group training Now it's been more difficult because of the situation, but before we had like language training that was offered in the building, so for people that want to work or improve their second language. So that's also a nice thing too that we do offer.
Okay, great, and that's fantastic. Group training is something I think a lot more departments are looking into, like you say, just for the ability to scale it up. So and it's also a good team building thing, even in pandemic times. If you can get your team together in a virtual environment, I know that can be very helpful. Julie, you mentioned sort of the spread of work. So you've got members obviously in the NCR and in some of the regional HQs, but there's a question here as well about some of the local detachments. I know you mentioned that the RCMP provides provincially regulated policing services in certain communities. So are there FI positions in any of those local detachments, or is it just limited to the regional HQs?
I don't think there would be any FI positions in the detachments themselves. For the most part, it is the larger metropolitan areas that have the central HQs. Yeah.
Okay, great. And there's a couple of questions we'll merge into one, and whichever one of you wants to take it can. So there's a question about unilingual FI3 level opportunities. I know you mentioned there are some English essential positions, but are they up at the FI3 level? And there's just a general question about what kind of positions, what levels and positions are you looking to fill immediately? Who are you taking on today?
Okay, so the immediate need is at the FI2 level for the most part. I canvassed my colleagues across those 3 areas that I mentioned to see where the demand is, and right now we do have a need at the FI2 level, predominantly bilingual, but there are unilingual as well. And to answer the FI3 question, we do have unilingual FI3 positions. There's not that many, and I'm pretty certain that's probably representative across government. But we do have a few FI3 that are unilingual. We even have some FI4 that are unilingual, which I know is incredibly rare.
For sure, and there's a question there I'll let you take quickly as well. The financial system. This seems to be asked of every department that presents. Is it free balance? Is it SAP? Is it something else?
It's SAP.
Okay, great. So while we're waiting for a couple more questions to come in here, I think we've addressed the ones that are on the screen. But one question that came up for another department yesterday, and I think it's one that we should take the opportunity to ask every department when we have a chance. And maybe I'll ask you, Mary, first to give you a chance to speak as well. What is it about the RCMP? What makes you enjoy working at the RCMP so much that they nominate you to come and give a presentation like this? Clearly, you must enjoy your work a little bit if you're doing these sessions. So just tell us a little bit about what it is about the RCMP that you like.
I do enjoy my job. I can say that honestly. What I like about the RCMP is the diversity. The mandate is so interesting, and like it's like you work on projects that you wouldn't get elsewhere. Like as said, we have I'm the director of corporate accounting, so asset accounting falls under me. So asset portfolio is like we have buildings, plane, boats, we have a bit of everything. We have revenue, so that's very different than other departments. I have a team that does pension accounting, and that again is very rare. There's only 3 departments, I think, that will do a pension financial statements on top of your departmental financial statement. So it's very, very interesting department for accountants, because the diversity and variety of what we work on is amazing.
Great, and same question over to you, Julie.
So I started my career at D&D, and I stayed there for about 8 years, and I did a brief stint in Health Canada, and then I came to the RCMP, and you might say maybe I just like people in uniform, but there's really something about a connection to mandate. I really felt connected to the mandate at D&D, and it's one of those things where it's a mandate that you see in the news. It's a mandate that people talk about. It's a group that's easily recognizable across Canada, and I just felt a really strong connection to the mandate. And I have to say, I didn't think that I would ever find another workplace that felt like home to me the way D&D did. And it was my first department, and I really had a strong connection there. And I really enjoyed the people that I work with and the sense of community. When I moved to the RCMP, I was pleasantly surprised to find that exact same environment where it really is like a community, and people become friends there, and you know, people really will see themselves spending their career there if they want to. It's a big enough department that you can move around quite significantly, but never actually leave the RCMP. And one thing that Mireille is leaving out, Mireille is one of the people who's been at the RCMP for a very long time. She lives over on the Quebec side. And she does that commute to Barrhaven, or used to do that commute to Barrhaven daily, because she loved her job. She loves her job. She loves her team. And same for me. I loved my team. I loved the sense of community and family there. Speaking particularly to finance, it really is a pretty small community, and we have to work together quite closely with our colleagues in corporate accounting, financial management, and corporate management systems. So it is a very collaborative environment, and that's something that I really, really enjoy.
That's great, and I really appreciate that candor, and it's always nice to hear from FIs like yourselves who have such passion for their work. It's inspiring for a lot of us. So I think you've made a very compelling pitch. We have managed to answer all the questions. So I'll just remind folks watching that if you go onto the ACFO website, the same place you found the link for this stream, you'll find a CV template there if you need a little bit of help getting your CV set up, or you can just use one you already have. And you can send it into the RCMP. And as we mentioned on the page there, make sure you take a few minutes, write a bit of an email and explain what it was about Mireille and Julie's presentation that caught your eye, and what it is about the RCMP that it appeals to you, whether it's the opportunity to work in beautiful Barrhaven, or whether it's some of what Mireille said about the variety of work, or what Julie said about the strength of the team there. We know that we have a lot of happy members at the RCMP. So Julie, Mireille, thank you very much for being part of our career fair today. We're going to let you guys go and get your second or third cups of coffee, whatever it's going to be. For those sticking around with the career fair, the next group starts in just a few minutes, and it's going to be Shared Services Canada. So thank you again, Julie. Thank you, Mireille, very much. Send your resumes into the RCMP, and for those sticking around, we'll see you soon for the next session. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for your time.